A mom found dead, stabbed more than a dozen times inside a vacation rental. Police say the people responsible are her teenage daughter and her teenage friend. The disturbing diary the victim's husband found months ago that police say is now a key piece of evidence in this case. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. A cleaning crew at a VRBO vacation rental in Utah made a chilling discovery, and it has put police on a multi-state manhunt for the suspects, who are two teenagers. Now, before we get to this diary entry that the victim's daughter, who police say killed her, and what it said about her potential alleged plans for murdering her mom, let's get you a timeline of what police are working with right now. This is the victim, Andrea Mottram. She was found stabbed 14 times in the upstairs of a home in southern Utah on March 23rd.
I'm Andrea Mottram from California.
Mottram worked for a Romanian-American social justice organization. This is video from their YouTube page, and according to her Facebook page, she lived in Auburn, California, which is near Sacramento. Police say she traveled to Washington, Utah. That's in the southern part of that state. It's a few hours from Las Vegas, and she rented a house. Police say on the 23rd, a cleaning crew arrived at the home, and you can see the kind of neighborhood it was in on Google Maps, very residential, and police say when the cleaning crew arrived, they noticed the garage door was open. Then they went inside, they found belongings still there as if the person who rented the place never left. When the cleaning crew went upstairs, that is when they found Mottram stabbed more than a dozen times. Police were called. They found a murder scene with a lot of evidence, which pointed them to two people. One of the suspects, 16-year-old Mihaela Sorescu, she goes by Bella. Police say she is Andrea's daughter. The other suspect is Bella's 17-year-old friend, Abigail Flanagan. She goes by Jay. According to police, not only did Bella and Jay stab Bella's mom to death, they also tried to flush her two cell phones and purse down a toilet. And it appears from court documents that officers believe that they found the knife that the two allegedly used in the killing. It was in the sink, washed off, but still, there were trace amounts of blood on it, a key piece of evidence. Now, police also found bloody pants crumpled up into a ball in a bathroom. They say those pants had the imprint of a bloody knife blade on them. Police also note, based on the size of the pants, that they believe they belonged to Bella. Now, it is unclear who was the one who allegedly stabbed Bella's mom to death. Both Bella and Jay, they are facing the same charges. Now, here is what we know about Bella and Jay. The two suspects in this case, 16 and 17 years old. Both did spend time in residential treatment facilities. Police say Bella had lived at a residential treatment facility for 3 years, and she was currently enrolled at a facility in this county in Utah where police found her mom murdered. Jay had also been, according to police, in a treatment facility, but police also say that Jay's parents had taken her out and she was living in California. Police say that both Bella and Jay were staying at this vacation rental where Andrea was killed. So you can see this timeline coming together. Now to the diary that Bella's father told police about. The man police say is Frank in documents tells them that in November, he found a diary that Bella had written where she talked about how she hated her mom and that she wanted to kill her. Now, he also says that Bella had a history of violent behavior. Now, after the alleged murder, police say Bella and Jay allegedly stole the car that Andrea rented to get to that house in Utah. The teens then went on a multi-state drive. They went from southern Utah to Las Vegas. That's about 2.5 hours away. Then they allegedly drove from Vegas to Paramount, California. That is near Los Angeles. That is another 4.5-hour drive. The two teens were on the run for nearly 2 weeks until their arrest. And police say on Friday, April 4th, Bella and Jay were returned to Utah, where they will face charges of first-degree murder, obstruction of justice for allegedly trying to hide evidence, and theft of a motor vehicle for allegedly taking the rental car and making it all the way to Southern California. Hey, I want to thank our sponsor, Experian, for sponsoring this episode of On the Case. Experian can help you stay on top of your finances. April is Financial Literacy Month, and Experian is all about that all year round. The first step to take control of your credit and finances is to download the Experian app. The app has tons of free tools at your fingertips to help you take control of your financial life, like your free FICO score, which can help you boost your FICO score instantly for free with Experian Boost. Free access to a marketplace of credit card, loan, and auto insurance options matched to you. Free credit monitoring with real-time alerts to keep you in the know on changes to your Experian credit profile. And let's not forget, you can easily freeze your Experian credit file for free in the app, helping you protect against identity theft. So make sure your finances are always in good shape with Experian. Use the link in the description or scan the QR code to download the free app now. Results will vary. Additional terms may apply. See App Store for details. What adds to how disturbing these allegations are is the days leading up to Andrea's murder. According to police, Andrea and Jay, one of the suspects, traveled together from California to Utah to visit Bella, who was staying at that treatment facility there. The group then spent multiple days together until they say the two teens murdered Bella's mom. And based on the timing of when that cleaning crew showed up in the morning after police say she was killed, it was on the last day they had the rental. It is unclear what allegedly motivated these two teens to kill, especially a mom who appeared to be doing what she could to help a troubled teen. According to Andrea's Facebook page, she seemed like the type of person who put others first in all aspects of her life. She listed herself as a hospice social worker and a mother in, quote, 3 special ways. On the day police say she was killed, she posted this picture in the afternoon with the caption, "This is almost 48." Joining me now is former NYPD detective and host of the Gold Shields podcast, Tom Smith. Thanks as always for taking the time to be here on Law and Crime. There's a lot to unpack in this case, just a brutal murder of a woman who seemed like she had dedicated her life to helping others. But from the court documents we've seen, there was a lot going on at this crime scene beyond just the victim who was found upstairs originally by this cleaning crew. It seems like there was an attempt to try to clean up the crime scene, try to hide some of the evidence, but at least from my perspective, reading these documents, that the suspects did not do a good job in that case.
Yeah, and that happens a lot when you have, in this case, two kids who just, committed a horrific murder. Trying to cover it up is not in their ballpark, so they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. And they're in a full-blown panic at that time. So that's where all the mistakes get made. And then they probably attempted to do it and then just panicked too much and then just decided to get out of the area. But you see that a lot when it comes to, child perpetrators committing a crime or people who, just don't normally, obviously, go into that kind of mindset of committing a murder. That happens quite often with messy crime scenes or attempts to cover it up.
Yeah, because it does seem this apparently happened on the last day that they were staying at this vacation rental. There's this diary that we'll talk about in just a moment, an entry from November where Bella, the daughter of the victim, allegedly wrote that she hated her mom, that she wanted to kill her mom. So this is something that apparently looks like it was planned. In the experience that you've had in these types of cases, not to kind of give the background of how people who are accused of murder do these things, but what are some of the ways that people typically cover up crime scenes when that shows that they know what they were doing?
Yeah, the blood is the hardest part to get up, but they'll do that. They'll position the body in certain ways. They'll get rid of weapons if there are any, obviously. They may actually try to stage an area as well to make it look like a break-in. So they'll break a window. They'll turn over certain furniture, to make it look that way, to get it off of the focus on them. So there's numerous ways that crime scenes can either be cleaned up or staged. And that's what looks like it took place here. But when you have, like I said, people that, are in a panic and who knows where their minds are at that point, a lot of messy mistakes get made. And that's where detectives and investigators and district attorneys, that's where they key on when it comes to gathering evidence.
What are other pieces of evidence from this crime scene, from what we've gathered from these court documents, that stick out to you that will be important as this case moves more into the prosecutor realm going forward?
Well, the manner of death, obviously, any weapons that might have been there, any other DNA that was there. When crimes are committed, the people committing the crimes also sometimes sustain an injury. So you want, to collect every type of DNA that's there, blood, saliva, sweat, anything that might be there that will contribute to showing that these two other people were involved in the crime.
And before we get to what we know about these suspects, their relationship with the victim, they did allegedly try to get away by taking a rental car. They drove roughly 7, 8 hours. Eventually, they get to Los Angeles. And I noticed that there were certain checkpoints along the way that police noted that they picked up the license plate of this car. What are some of the pieces of technology that people trying to flee a crime scene typically don't realize law enforcement has in following a manhunt like this?
Yeah, the LPRs, which are license plate readers, are the biggest asset that law enforcement has because they are all over the place. Some are visible and some aren't. On bridges, on highways, on tolls, on just intersections that are able to pick up license plates. So to track, and you know where they started. So that is a big, big part of getting the evidence needed when it comes to tracking them because you know where the car started from. So you just kind of methodically work your way from there, any, highways that they might have had access to. So you just kind of, it's a puzzle and you just put one piece together at a time, leading to where, they end up.
We'll talk about the suspects here because you have Bella, who is the daughter of Andrea Mottram, who's the victim in this case, and then her friend, Abigail Flanagan. Both had spent time in what was being described as a residential treatment facility. It's unclear what their background is when it comes to mental health. We know that in some cases, Bella had a history of violence, according to her father in this diary entry. It seems like a tragic case where you have a mom who is still trying to do something for her daughter who is facing a lot of challenges. From how you've seen some of these cases play out before, I mean, how can a parent kind of handle these situations? And, it's hard to predict that something like this is going to happen, but certainly there was a history there and a dynamic that it appears this family was struggling with.
Yeah, it's sad. All events like this and crimes like this are always sad, but it's a different kind of level when you end up killing a parent or killing a child. That level of evil is really hard to kind of work your way through. But what they're going to do is just work backwards. And me and you have had these conversations numerous times, Chris, with investigations where you have the crime and you're just going to work backwards into the background of these two individuals in their mental health capacity, in their criminal history, in their social history. Are they on social media? What else are they posting about? But a deep dive into the backgrounds and is going to be key in this. And then you're going to get into their relationships and their communications with one another. It's going to be very interesting as this goes on of who actually brought this up, whose plan was it, who wanted it done. That may really come out, and I think it will. It usually does along the lines of the investigation.
Yeah, and there's this diary entry that the father of Bella has come forward with, saying that she said that she hated her mom, that she wanted to kill her mom, and I guess this was back in November. Teenagers say a lot of things, and certainly this is a teenager who has faced a lot of challenges, has had some mental health issues. How do you decipher what is teenage rhetoric and then actually a plan for alleged murder?
Well, what else is found? Yeah, that's gonna, you have that diary entry, but what else contributes to that? What other corroborating evidence do you have that's going to link it all together? And that's what they're going to do. Social media posts, as I mentioned, is going to be a big part. But, the writings and social media posts are all great circumstantial evidence. You still have to prove that they did it. And that's where the other evidence that's either at the crime scene or other contributing factors are going to come into this. That's all great evidence to build a motive case, but you still need the evidence linking them to this murder.
Should the father, and I think at this point it's hard to put this on somebody, but when you notice a diary entry like this, is there anything law enforcement could have done in November had the family come forward? Or what's the approach that a parent should take when they read something like this?
Yeah, that's a tough one. There's no crime in writing down, you being mad at your parents. We don't know what level that was at. And again, like I said, is there any other contributing factors to this? But just reading a diary entry would be tough to have the police involved. They may recommend a counselor to go to or a group session to go to, something along those lines. But there isn't actually a criminal act in just writing something in your diary.
If you were one of the police officers in Washington County, Utah right now, who have these two suspects, you're going to interview them, ask them what happened. What are some of the questions that you would lead with to set the tone in that interview?
Well, you're going to start with the relationship between, like, starting with the daughter. What was the relationship like? What was your treatment like? What did you go into? All those. And then I'm going to get into the relationship with the other person and see how this all started. When was these discussions started? When did they begin? And who started them? Whose idea? All of that is going to contribute to who did what, and charges, and who may flip on who. That's when you have two people, one of them always gives up a little bit more than the other one to save their butt. So I would be keying on that of where did this start and who started it.
They're both facing the same charges right now. We don't know who the one was who stabbed this woman allegedly 14 times. Does that make much of a difference as this case goes forward if they're both facing these same charges?
No, it shouldn't. But unfortunately, in the criminal justice system, it will when it comes to lesser degree crimes or plea bargains or who becomes a witness. Unfortunately, that is part of this. So if one of them did actually flat out just do the stabbing, that's going to be more of a factor when it comes to charges. Do you want someone pinpointing and sealing up this case? The other eyewitness that was standing there while this was all going on? Yes. And unfortunately, when it comes to these cases, those kind of deals are made.
Yeah, and I know that there were some sweatpants that had an outline of a knife, and it was because of the sizing, Bella's pants, police believe. Is that enough to, if let's just say she's not talking, let's say neither are talking, neither are saying who did it, is having sweatpants with an outline of a knife enough to go forward and say that this was the person who did it?
That's tough. That's a rough one, and that's where detectives and district attorneys and evidence collectors and forensics all come into play. Do I think it as the detective? Would I charge her with it? Absolutely, and then let it kind of play out and let the investigation continue. But when it comes to gathering evidence, there's so many factors when it comes to it, and you hope that the DNA part and the technology we have today extracts something even more that puts her right at that scene in those pants during the murder.
And knowing that just based off of how sloppy it seems that they were allegedly in trying to clean up this crime scene, whether it's hair, blood, whatever will provide the DNA. If you have that as a detective, does it matter if they don't talk at all to investigators? Is there enough science there to say that these are the people responsible for this murder?
No doubt about it. You always want, in a perfect world, when it comes to detective work, you always want the statements. You always want, what happened from the mouths of the people involved. But it's not necessary. If the evidence is there and it's all put together into a case, then that is certainly enough.
When you have someone who is cooperative after the fact, even for a crime as horrific as murder, and a murder that is allegedly as horrific as the one that police say that this cleaning crew found upstairs, which, first of all, you just feel for this cleaning crew to show up and find this in the upstairs of a vacation rental that you were just supposed to be cleaning up for supposedly the next person to come through. But does the fact, if someone does cooperate, if they come forward and say, yes, I did it, and they're very helpful with the investigation, does that matter at all going down the line as far as what the sentence may look like if it's for something like murder?
It can, and that's where now judges get involved, and DAs and defense attorneys with plea bargains and lesser sentences if there is an admission of guilt. That happens all the time, and this is probably not going to be any different if it does come up. And there is now a guilty plea, there's going to be, some contributing factors with sentencing, but that's totally up to the judge.
What could a lesser sentence look like in this case when you're dealing with a crime that typically puts people behind bars for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, like in New York, would be murder one down to murder two or manslaughter or something like that. the lesser degree of the crime is going to lower the sentencing when it comes to prison time. So it depends on the laws of Utah and what their levels of murder charges are or manslaughter charges are when it comes to different plea deals.
And just as we look at this story from the bird's eye view, and you have two teenagers who are accused of committing a crime, and very likely, if the evidence proves that, from what we're reading in the police report, and then they're found guilty, they'll spend at least a good portion of their lives behind bars. And I know a lot of people have been talking about the show Adolescence recently, which is on Netflix, and that has to do a little bit more with young men and some of the things going on in their world. And I'll let people watch the show if they want. But just thinking of these teenagers, have you seen a change? I mean, is there that type of concern going forward where you just have young people that are committing these types of crimes that are just not only taking the life of somebody, but in their case, ruining their lives?
Yeah, it's very odd, and it's been going on for the past few years, and there's probably so much involved because we could do an entire show probably just on that, with social media and the different types of designer drugs that are out there and party scenes and influences of other people that, are going to tell you they're going through the same thing and you should do this. So there's a large influence that's going on in this world, unfortunately, that kids are getting just wrapped up in and caught in this really bad web of just violence and, mental health issues, all of that. So all of that goes into it. And unfortunately, we're in the middle of that. And, I pray it just goes down at some point.
Yeah, no, it's just something that crossed my mind as you just think about these two young people and what they're accused of doing to their own mom, and in such a brutal fashion. And then just lastly, Tom, and I know in a lot of times we've talked, you look at the system and the questions about the system. Both of them were in a way in the system as far as being part of a residential treatment program. What type of oversight is there for people who face so many challenges, whether it comes to violent thoughts or addiction, mental health issues? What type of oversight for those programs is there to know that someone might be capable of something like this?
Yeah, it's hard. And the problem is when you have adolescents and you have young people who are in that system, okay, and you're in facilities that are rehab facilities or whatever it might be, they are experts in manipulation and experts on what to say and how to say it to get out of there. I'm fine. I'm okay now. Nothing's in my mind. Things like that. They are experts in manipulating counselors into kind of, hoaxing them that they're okay. And that's how they get out. But an oversight as far as once you get out is very, very difficult if it's not something a court decided, if it's a voluntary thing that you're in these systems or somewhat voluntary that your parents put you in there. There's very little that can be done once they're out of that facility.
Yeah, it's any way you look at it, just an incredibly sad story. Now the legal process will play out. Former NYPD Detective Tom Smith, always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Chris. Thank you very much.
It does appear that this victim, Andrea Mottram, had a major impact on a variety of causes, and that should be honored as now we follow the story surrounding her death. She was the founder of a group called Archer, which stands for American Romanian Coalition for Human and Equal Rights. The group is a Romanian American social justice organization, and on its website, Andrea writes that she had a passion for the rights of vulnerable groups. And on the group's Facebook page, Archer writes, like many of you, we are still in shock at this heartbreaking news. Andrea's dedication to justice, equity, and human rights was not just a mission. It was the very essence of who she was. There is a GoFundMe page as well. You can see it here that has raised more than $20,000 to not only pay for funeral arrangements, but to help her loved ones who still live in Romania be able to travel to the United States to attend and mourn her death. For On the Case, presented by Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.